What's that? Man, it feels good to be back. I almost said it feels good to be a gangster, but I really didn't. I don't know if I have enough soul in me to do that. Man, it feels good to be back. We did do a Mastermind Monday last week, but it was pre-recorded. So it's been 2 weeks since we've actually had an opportunity to be in the studio, all three of us together. That's special.
Yep.
I like that. We missed our buddy in the middle here. The last time we did one. So it feels so good to be back. If you're joining us live, thank you for being here. If you're joining us after the fact, you're awesome too. But maybe try to jump in here live at some point and ask some questions, because the show is about you and us all learning together. And we need your opinions and questions, thoughts inside the chat to do that. So if you do have any questions today, please make sure to drop those inside the chat. We'll get to those today. I think we've got some specific things we're going to talk about. Josiah's going to intro those in a second. But if you're watching on repeat and you're enjoying the content, if you enjoy the shorts that we put out, if you enjoy the long form videos, please hit subscribe. We enjoy doing this YouTube channel a ton. It means a lot to us. And so if you're not yet subscribed and you're enjoying the material, don't be a silly goose head and just hit subscribe. Ding. And hit the little bell notification. We got this guy over here making sound effects. That's awesome.
He's here for the sound effects.
Yeah. You know, most people have soundboards. We have Josh and feels good to be a gangster. Josiah, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, we've got 5 different kind of discussions, but they're all kind of around the same topic. But first one, we're going to be chatting about data analytics and making data-driven decisions. Next is IT infrastructure as it relates to the reliable hardware and software that we use. Next is discussing what our biggest money makers are, which everybody loves talking about money. So that's going to be a good one. Discussing how
money.
Can I just say, while you're chatting, Josiah, that we need to know. We have a Keurig here at the office.
Yeah.
And I just tried my first cup of Starbucks,
of dirt water.
Pumpkin flavor.
Yeah.
And it is the most disgusting cup of coffee I've ever had.
Give me a high five.
And so if you're out there and you have a Keurig, do not purchase the pumpkin spice from Starbucks. You will not be happy. It's a waste of money.
I'm going to give you just a little bit further here. Don't buy flavored coffee that has been roasted into the coffee. Buy coffee, then flavor it if you must. If you must flavor the coffee after the fact.
That's good.
Don't buy flavored coffee that's roasted into it. That's silly goose head stuff. Caleb Kirkpatrick is in here. He is gone today. He's in Florida. He's one of our YouTube producers. We miss you, Caleb. I feel like you're kind of one of our YouTube producers and you're kind of just a world traveler and you're almost never here, but it's okay because we love you so much.
So part of making data-driven decisions is to understand that your palette has a dashboard. And when you put something on roasted, the palette, and it ends up
being coffee roasted.
It's bad data. It's bad data. Now we have to decide: is it the water? What
Oh yeah.
Oh no, we know. We know.
You have to do an audit.
I think you could. I think you could make coffee with creek water, and it would get so hot that it would taste a little bit better than that. I think it's the flavored coffee.
Anyways, this is not on the discussion board, okay? But we can add it at the bottom. Next is discussing how the company handles organizational changes, like adding nasty coffee to the office, or implementing new systems. And then we're going to talk about the company's commitment to continuous improvement.
That's awesome.
And so, as you can tell, we do not like bad things lingering. And so we're going to be talking about improving the office.
You should definitely try that. It is so bad. It's actually unbelievable. It's so bad. I'm going to tell all of you guys to go buy one just so you can experience it. I mean, that is like rancid, dude. That is rancid.
I'm trying to figure out.
This may be one of the only times you need to drink milk and
like
get some
soap
creamer
water or something. That's
no,
bad.
dude. It's the spice in it.
I'm
telling you, it's flavored coffee. You don't do that. It's silly goose head stuff.
We got to pray to jump. We got to pray and jump into
Lord,
this.
Please pray over us.
Hey, if you're with us today and you have something that's going on inside of your lives, our goal is not to just offer, what we've learned in relation to pressure washing, but also life and to partner with you in your life and in your business. And so if you have anything that you'd like for us to pray over, I'd ask that you put it inside the chat. We may not get to it today, but we will pray for it in the future. And so with that being said, I'll go ahead and open up today and let's pray. Father, we thank you for life on this planet. We thank you for your presence, your goodness, your grace in our lives. And Father, today as we talk about dashboard and data and information and how to make decisions, ultimately help it to be also a responding board for us to take inventory inside of things that matter more than just business, God. And so I pray that you'd speak to each one of us individually on how best we can respond to you corporately. It's in Christ's name I pray. And everyone said,
Amen.
Amen. Well,
We got our first question. Reva asks, and we don't really know Reva. JK, he's on the team here.
That sounds like revelation.
One of the
Reva,
most YouTube star.
Reva, yeah, he's got his own YouTube channel. I do not know what it's called, but just try to find him.
That's a good friend right there.
I don't know what it's called.
Put it in the chat.
Yeah, drop your YouTube channel in the chat for all 6 of us. What do you do if you accidentally drink SH, asking for a friend? The first thing you do is call a friend if that friend is a paramedic and immediately get transported to the hospital. But it's all organic. It's basically a highly concentrated amount of salt. It doesn't kill anything. It just discolors stuff. So
You'll probably die.
that's what I was taught to say.
Have you ever tasted?
For sure.
For sure you
When
have.
you're in the field, you guys know if you're in the field, it gets in places that you never knew even existed. And so it just really stinks on
What's
ice.
the worst place that SH has ever drizzled onto your body?
The eyeball.
The eyeball?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the worst. You'll go blind for 2 minutes. And then your eyes are
Really?
red. They're so like dry. Oh,
Yeah,
it's
they're
terrible.
just, it's cleaning it so good.
And then you're like, wow, I can see. all that algae is gone.
Do you think our body,
Forget bifocals about SH.
you know how if you add something to your stomach, it doesn't like it at first, but if you introduce it enough times, you
Yeah.
end up becoming metabolically adaptive.
Yeah.
And so the question becomes, as a professional pressure washer,
Mm.
can you end up becoming adaptive where you can shoot SH straight up your nostrils
No
And-
shot.
and you're like, I don't even, this tastes like water. Like that.
This is like pumpkin spice. Yeah, no shot.
It tastes better than that. I'll say
That
that much.
that's
terrible.
doo-doo water.
I mean, to
That's
me, SH
doo-doo
tastes
water.
like ocean water.
When's the last time you tasted SH?
Have you opened your eyes underneath the ocean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that hurts pretty good. That's true. Yeah, but I think it's probably a little different. Can you imagine swimming in SH?
I mean, it's what we tell our customers. Just pool water.
It's going to smell like a pool cleaner left. Just, be okay with it.
All right.
All right.
First question. First topic. Data analytics. Highlight the use of data analytics to derive insight, make data-driven decisions, and improve overall business performance.
Before we get into this question, I'd like to just make a quick observation. This is where you say, okay.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
You should be you and not somebody else. And sometimes we learn that other companies are using certain software, system, dashboard, data to make decisions. It doesn't mean you necessarily need to do what everybody else does. And so, in my opinion,
That's good.
you need to also be true to what you're good at and what you're intuitive at. And so if you end up hearing that, hey, we recommend this, or we use this software, this tool, or make decisions based on this, there's 2 portions that I would encourage you on the very front. First is don't try to be somebody you're not. Be exactly who you are. And then also know for the second part where you are. The data that you need is determined upon where you're at the moment. You don't need to know all the different ins and outs. And if you're just starting a business, you may need to just know what questions to write down when you're on the phone and have a napkin and a pen. As you scale, you're going to end up needing more tools to help you stay organized. And so wherever you're at inside your journey, don't take whatever you hear today and try to overlay it where you're at, because where you're at might not be where we're at. And so make sure you just take what you hear and implement what you need. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I
Yeah.
think that was good.
And the reason I say that, and this is an important conversation for today, is have you guys ever tried to lose 5 pounds?
Yes.
If you weigh 300 pounds, it's not that difficult to lose 5 pounds.
Yeah. You just don't drink a Coke that day and you probably will.
And so the information that you need and the habits that you need to do is not necessarily a huge amount of change. And so trying to lose 5 pounds when you're 175 and you're trying to get down to 170, that's a whole different ball game. And so this is what we're going to call the greatness gap. Greatness is getting from where you are today to where you want to be, but that gap is dependent upon how far away you are from your desired outcome. And so, for example, inside of cross country, we have kids that run 30, 35-minute 5Ks, and we also have kids that run 16-minute, 17-minute 5Ks. To go from 30 minutes to 25 minutes means you've just shaved off how many minutes, Brady?
7.
I was looking at Scott. I'm not going to lie. We were secretly communicating via text, but I love what you're saying. It's so good.
No, it really is. I want
5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm listening.
To go
5.
from 30-minute 5K to a 25-minute 5K for a high school athlete male is nowhere near as challenging as going from a 20-minute to a 15-minute.
Sure.
So you're only trying to scale 5 minutes, but based on where you're at inside the game determines how difficult it is going to become that great. But the great kids are like at 15 minutes, and there's only 1 or 2 inside the state. And so what you almost want to do is determine where I am to where I need to be and slowly turn up the heat as you go, and then don't get comfortable. There comes a time where everyone hits the weight, they hit the time, and they're at a comfortable pace because they're not at 300, they're not at 30 anymore, but they get consistent at being okay because they used to be really bad. Well, once you go from bad to okay, you've got to ask the question, how do I become great at something? I got to turn it up. I got to dial it in. I got to start measuring macros. I got to start measuring where my body is and how much intake, and like all these things matter as you try to scale to greatness.
Right. And I'd say from a person who might struggle with ADD, I mean, it wouldn't be me, but marginal gain is something I hold on to a lot. I don't think that you can shave 5 minutes off from 20 to 15. I think it'd be unrealistic to say you could do that in a week's time.
Ask me, say, how do you do it?
How do you do it?
Yeah. And so
marginal gain.
Yeah. The way you have to do it is years.
Yeah.
And it's not a week. It's not a month. It is consistent behaviors day in, day out. It can't be greatness on one day. It's a consistency. And that's how you're going to grow your business. As we talk about data and information, it's ultimately trying to get a marginal distance better and stay consistent at that than you were yesterday. And so consistency over time builds that 15-minute 5K guy. Right. Anybody can do it if they're putting in the consistent effort, but it's not once or twice a week.
Yeah. And I think that there's this thought in everybody's head. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times, that you're just going to arrive somewhere and then you're going to be good for the rest of your life. You can just check out and you have all the money in the world. Nothing matters anymore. And I think that that's a fallacy. I don't think it's true. And I think that if you set like a decade vision or so, of if you wanted to shave, 5 minutes off from 20 to 15, well, I think I can do that in 5 years. Then it makes it a lot easier to manage and put small incremental things in place. So larger time scale on the goal, maybe.
James Clear would say inside of the book, Atomic Habits, you don't rise to your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And I think that that's so perfect in this conversation as it relates to, what are the habits, what are the behaviors that you have that are getting you to that marginal gain? And also, like, we're talking about systems today, So
Josiah, let me just ask you out of the gate, do we have any type of data that's related to how we make decisions in the field?
Data-driven decisions in the field.
Yeah. Do we use any kind of data as it relates to in-field decisions?
So that's a good question. I would say it's very difficult to do that because each job's a little bit different. Like if you're on site, we basically know that these chemicals and this way to clean, over time, you can get enough data to figure out how you're going to get a product or a result. But as it relates to, making sure that the customer gets what they want, there's so many times that if you're out there and you show up to someone's house and they're like, I just want a general wash. I just want my home to get, cleaned up a bit. Or you show up to a house and it's already clean that's very difficult to understand what that customer wants. And so I'll tell you a quick story. I was on site at a customer's home. This guy was a custom home builder, right? And his job was to go in after he built a custom home for someone that was millions of dollars. And he said, I had to get a list of all the things that they did not like about the house. And my job was to fix all of them.
Wowsy.
And he said, you could imagine that there was a pretty big list. The floor creaks here, the lights aren't lined up, and it could be very overwhelming. And he said, but what I found was, is if you can identify the three things, the three most important things to that customer, and make sure that you take care of those three things, everything else kind of falls into its own place. And so taking that data, whether it's not like field, it's not I guess, laboratory studied data, but based off of his knowledge and his experience, we took that same information, the three most important things, and that's what we try to do as in-field guys. We try to find the three things that the customer's most excited about or most important to them, and we focus on those three, and most of the time it turns out great. So that's the kind of data that we try to gather and we put into a plan of attack.
Hey, what are like two or three, and Brady or Josiah, you guys can ask this. If I'm on the job, what are maybe the key metrics or KPIs that I would want to use to make decisions on a job? So if I'm on a job, what would you say are some of the two or three questions or the data-driven decisions we should be processing?
You know, one thing I get really frustrated with, and I'm not frustrated with you, so don't take this the wrong way, but when we say things like KPIs, and no, not we, but like when I'm watching somebody else and they say a bunch of things, I used to have to write it all down because I didn't know what it meant. KPI is a really good term to know. It's key performance indicator. It teaches you what are the key performance things that you want to be indicated of that help you go wherever you're trying to go. So that's what a KPI is. When we breeze by and say things like that, it's a key performance indicator. And I would say KPIs are almost the entire answer to this in this whole discussion.
Oh yeah.
Is knowing what KPIs it is that you want to have. So ask your question one more time.
Yeah, if I'm starting a company and I'm learning what KPIs, or I'm trying to make data-driven decisions, what are some of the questions I need to be asking myself, maybe before, during, or after a job?
Well, the question that you're asking is, what does a win look like? You know, when you have completed the job, did you win the game while you were there, or did you lose the game? What are the things that are going to indicate that? I would say, did you get a review from the customer? That would indicate that you did a great job, a good review. Anyways, I mean, that's going to really tell you.
I won, I got a 1 star.
But a 5-star review is going to really tell you,
easy sauce.
I won the game on this one. So that would be a KPI, key performance indicators, a review.
Yeah, and let's say you're a 2-truck company. Like you have your own truck and you gave another guy a truck and you're doing it. If you are the leader and the entrepreneur, it is your responsibility to set the win and the loss for your team. Now, even if you've got 10 trucks, it's the same. Every single truck, every single machine that is running, every minute that machine is running, the guy who's operating the machine needs to know what a win actually looks like. And so you could simplify this down to kind of like 3 things that show them that they're winning. A review is at the top for us, for sure.
Yeah.
In-field stuff.
You know, for me, another good question is to ask, how long did it take to do the job, and how much did the job break everybody? I would say not just cost. Yeah. I mean, I guess cost would be, how much did the techs make? How much was it to acquire the job from a marketing standpoint? How much did the salesperson make? And then, you know, what type of cost of goods are there when it comes to breaking out the gas, the equipment, everything to get the job done, insurance. What was the final numbers on getting the job? And because it's one thing to do $1,000 job, but if you do $1,000 job and it took you 2 or 3 days, the team is not going to want to be there in the future. They're actually probably going to call a meeting and be like, hey, we need to meet together because I love you guys. I'm a hard worker, but I ain't making no money.
Yeah, there's a breakdown somewhere. Yeah. And one of the last questions we ask is like, is it good for the customer? Is the price good for the customer? In that scenario, I think the customer ran to the bank laughing and had a great time. But so it's got to fall somewhere in the middle of it being great money for the technician, for you who's cleaning it, and a great deal for the customer. I think that's a scale.
Yeah, it's all around data-driven decisions.
For sure.
That's the whole thing. Is like you have to learn to love the numbers. You have to learn to love the data and what the numbers are telling you. And I would encourage you that it doesn't matter if you're only doing 1 or 2 jobs a week or a month. There's data to be pulled and figure out where you want to go, and then figure out the data that's going to help you get there. The KPIs, the key performance indicators. How did you get the job? The 2 jobs that you're on. Okay. Yard signs. Maybe we need to put yard signs out. More yard signs.
Right. And you have to be able to collect that data too. So if you're the one answering the phones, or you've got someone answering the phones, and they need to be ready and prepared to ask those questions so that you can figure out what's your strongest lead source. Well, that's data. That's a KPI you want to track. If it's yard signs, then you know you need to double down on yard signs, probably buy some more and slam them out. If it's an internet lead, if it comes from Google, if it comes from Bing, it comes from Facebook, well, now you know, hey, instead of buying 5,000 yard signs, maybe I take that money, dump it into Facebook, Google, and Bing, and then you're just shooting everything up. For KPIs for us inside the sales department, this is what I think Josiah's getting to. And he says, you need to know the data. You need to start loving the numbers. For me, I look at the numbers every single day. Yeah. My wife, she looks at the numbers of our bank account every single day the way that I do our business numbers. I'm like, she'll text me and be like, hey, was that coffee good? And I'm like, yeah, it really was. But the point is, she's like dialed in on that. And for that, we're able to save money, so on and so forth. The KPIs that we track that are super specific inside the sales department are an average ticket, which is obviously how many tickets you have in a week, a month, a year, all averaged out over your total revenue cost. You'll take the total revenue, divide it by how many tickets are in that time period. That gives you your average ticket. For us, if our average ticket falls somewhere around 800 to 900 and we're winning about 66% to 70%, we're where we need to fall. If that number goes higher, I'll see our win percentage likely go down. If that number goes lower to 700, 600, I'll see that number shoot up to 73, 74, 75%. Or if it goes down and the average ticket roughly stays the same, then I know there's a different problem, which would be like the follow-up process. Sure. So for example, 3 weeks ago at a sales meeting, I noticed that some of the numbers were off. I started identifying what I thought was a problem. 2 weeks later, the numbers were right back up, actually higher than both of them have normally been, because we were kind of lacking on the follow-up game. So when you start looking at the numbers, it's like a facts over feeling conversation. You can start seeing, oh, it's just math. Something's not adding up here. This is why you need KPIs, because it'll help you make an unbiased decision inside of the business and keep everything on track.
Have you ever known that your bank account is low, so you just don't look at it? Like you just know that if you look and you see that there's $139 in your bank account, you're like, I don't want to look at it. I just want to buy this meal. I want to buy this $20 meal. No. And so I want to encourage you.
I've always had low bank accounts before. I just knew it was low.
Yes, so you don't look at it. And so I want you to not avoid the numbers if they're ugly, if you know that it's going to reveal something that you don't like, and you're going to have to face a hard decision. There might be numbers that you're like, I need to pull the plug on this business because it's killing my family's future.
Yeah, that's good.
Like you need to be very serious with your numbers as well.
Yeah, and so one of the questions might be, what are the consequences of not using data or not taking time to measure the cost of your time and your money? So one thing I was chewing on is that I may have not continued the business if I would have looked at all the data at the early years.
Right. Yeah. It draws attention to your risk meter. It makes it more realistic. I think you can share probably better that story than I can for you.
Yeah. And so sometimes data is scary, and fear prevents us from moving forward. And so sometimes you have to equate, like, how much information do I need to know? And then what am I trying to accomplish? And, Winston Churchill, he was hard on speed trumping preparation. And so there are some folks that were losing the battles because of their preparation versus their speed. And speed can trump preparation. And so it's important to know prep. It's important to know your data, but not at the expense of knowing the speed in which you need to go in order to get a job done.
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
speed
So
can
good.
outwork somebody else's performance. And
For
so
sure.
that's why when you get into the data, you want to ask the question, how much do I want to know? How much do I need to know? And what do I really need to know? And so maybe those are just the quick
That's
questions, you know, as far as, hey, what do I have to know the answers to?
And I think you can afford a bigger L in the beginning, you know, than you can as you grow and scale. Not only do you have more team members, more liabilities, you know, smaller decisions, bigger decisions that weigh worse as you grow. It can totally, one decision can totally defeat it, especially depending upon how close you are to profitability. But in the beginning, if it's just you, maybe one other, you know.
Here's a data-driven decision that we hear from other solopreneurs or folks that are trying to grow a business. When should I go from 1 truck to 2 trucks or bring someone else on the truck? And what they're doing is they're comparing where they're at to where other people are. Instead of just asking the question, what is the why behind what I'm doing? Am I trying to scale something to 3 or 4 different trucks? Because more trucks equals more problems and less profit.
More money, more problems.
And so when we hit 1 million, we had the least amount of profitability we'd ever had because we had so many different things, like mosquitoes love sucking on a body that's filled with juicy blood and certain blood types. And so we got sucked on like crazy as we got bigger because we had different people working at different speeds. We had different costs, you know, from Yelp to Home Advisor to Angie's. Like, we used all of these different advertising tools, and some of them were costing us 20% to get a lead. And then that lead was a cheap human being.
Yeah.
And so you want to know, hey, what is my why? What am I trying to attract? Am I trying to get big? Sometimes there's beauty in staying inside hey, I started this business so I didn't have to work for the man. I get to set my own schedule, my own time. Well, stick there.
Yeah.
Let that be the data-driven decision and not social media, you know, or somebody else telling you, hey, you need to scale to 4 or 5 trucks. Be you. Know why you do what you do.
Question.
It's good.
If someone does want to start tracking some of this data, what are some softwares that they can tap into and be able to pull simple reports, or, you know, just know the numbers?
Brett, you got any ideas?
I mean, easily finding a CRM that does at least half of what you think you need in the moment that you need it. For us, we utilize a CRM called House Call Pro. It's excellent. It basically, some of the reports are a little bit more manual to pull, but it has the data you need to pull almost any report necessary, especially at a small business level. So House Call Pro is a no-brainer.
Yeah, I wish we could put inside of our show notes a link right into House Call Pro.
Yeah.
There are many good CRMs to use. We're just saying, for us, we landed with House Call Pro. I started in the summer of 2016. By February 2017, I started with House Call Pro. Were we big enough in February to use House Call Pro? No. But did I already recognize that me at the grocery store answering a telephone and trying to write this customer's name, like, that is important information. And sometimes you lose a napkin. Sometimes you spill coffee on your napkin and it's gone. That key information that you need. So if you're going to grow, you need a software to be able to capture that information. And then as you learn, you start hearing about Service Titan, you start hearing about all these other great CRMs. Then you learn that some of them will do things that you're not getting, but at the expense of things that you are getting. And for us, that was with tips. And so to move to a different CRM meant our guys weren't making any more tips. I saw a guy's check 2 weeks ago. You get to guess how much money he made in tips.
$100.
$333. Yeah. And so one dude made over $300 in tips. If I would have moved to a software that didn't allow that guy, I've just shot him in the leg of not being able to make tips for what he's doing. So anyway,
QuickBooks is a good one as well. You know, that's more of like the financial side. I would say from the beginning, you need a way to look at your money, because if you don't know, well, how much money do I have to spend on an upgrade? You know, I've spent so much money in equipment. I haven't spent any money on marketing. Like, you need to know where your money's going.
Yeah, it's so good too. As Josh says, he's standing in the grocery line writing things down on his arm. It's like, as much as we like to think we have the brain power necessary to do something like that, the reality is you just absolutely do not. I mean, there's so many things going on. I've heard your brain power equated to RAM in a computer, where there's actually so much it can hold. And then after that, the smaller things just start to go to make room for the more important things that your brain has to store. And all of it is important, large or small. They all play a small role inside of pulling the reports, storing the data that you need to grow the company.
Yeah. And now that we're able to look back on it, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, 7 years later, it brings us then the ability to see, oh, we have ebb and flows inside of the business. And it's like March comes every year, and then February comes every year, and then January or July. Like, once you learn, and then you can create different playbooks or say, guys, I need y'all to go take vacations in July.
Right. And
the sooner you start tracking data, the sooner you're going to be able to tap into the trends of your company and of your personal finances.
You can forecast based off of feel, but if you want to be like a meteorologist who has a radar and a Doppler, then you need to get something.
A lie that I hear people saying. I was watching the Andrew Huberman podcast.
Listened to him yesterday,
and he was talking about the building strength, hypertrophy, power. And he had a gentleman on his episode, and the dude basically talked about an hour to 2 hours worth of exercise every day. Inside the notes, this is what one of the people said inside. So how you can read different people's comments inside of YouTube. This is what the person said: I ain't got time to work out for 2 hours a day. And it's like, well, maybe you need to get off social media so you can have 2 hours a day to do it. And so there's a lie in which you believe that prevents you from doing what you need to do. And one of them might be, I can't afford QuickBooks. I can't afford House Call Pro. I can't afford. Well, you can afford it if you didn't spend the money on certain other areas, and your business will only grow to the professionality that you end up investing inside of it. So it will go up as you invest in it. But if you don't invest in it, it ain't going to go up. So that person that's watching this, they were watching this. Why were they watching why were
they were hoping to hear
they had a bunch of free time
because they were on social media.
They weren't working out.
You're watching Andrew Huberman. You're going to be watching it so you can learn to go somewhere that you're not currently at, but you don't take the advice of the person that's sharing with you what you got to do to get from where you're at to where you might want to be. And it's the cost of greatness, or it's the cost of getting better. I'm not willing to give up my social media time. I'm not willing to give up $35 a month for QuickBooks. You can get something somewhere to get started, and don't believe the lie that you can't. That's a lie.
Yeah, don't start me on the soapbox of getting off social media, because I'll tell everyone. I mean, the irony is not dead on me. We're doing a live stream on social media right now. I get it, but I don't have any personal social media. One thing I would say is I think it's important to know the difference between the terminology cost and investment. If you fundamentally believe that the money that you're putting into something is going, and listen to what I'm saying. If you fundamentally believe, like you believe it in your head, you actually believe that the money that you're putting into something is going to yield you more money, you can say in the long run, even in the relative long run, like I'd say kind of short term, just do it. It's an investment. You will get it back. It's not a cost. What you will do is invest in a Coca-Cola and just drink it all up, and then that's gone. And that actually probably yields you some negative results. But anyways, that's a cost.
But your dashboard likes it.
Yeah, your body dashboard definitely enjoys a good Coca-Cola.
You try to take a Sprite away from Judah, you're gonna have some problems.
You try to take a Sprite away from Caleb Kirkpatrick, you're gonna have some problems.
And so the question becomes, sometimes you've got two different dashboards.
Yeah. And
you got to determine which one you're going to let run your business.
Yeah. At the end of the day, like actually believing and understanding the difference between the terms investment and cost will decide at least whether or not you grow at all, but at least how quickly. Mm-hmm. If you look at investing in House Call Pro as like, oh my gosh, it's going to cost me, $400 a month to do that. First of all, my brain immediately goes, that's 2 house washes. Figure it out. Right. Like just figure it out. But if you look at it that way, you're not looking at it like, oh, this will tell me for next year or next quarter what I could be kind of predicting and forecasting. You're a goober.
So question for you, Brady. What is the currency of life?
Relationships are the currency of life.
If And do you believe that?
I fundamentally actually do believe
Give me
that.
an example of relationships being the currency of life.
Okay. I was in a band for about 8 years. I met Josh probably around 8 years ago, probably now, 7 or 8. How long you been here back?
I feel old.
How long have you been back?
I don't know, like 7.5 years.
Then we probably met right around there. Anyways, we met kind of not through the music industry, but for me, it was through the music industry. He was a pastor. Our band started leading worship. We were contracted for a year. Well, we got to know each other pretty good. I remember you coming up to me, dude. And you were like, man, we're going to do like 14,000 this month. You got to come work at Brown's. He was telling me back then, way before he needed it.
Let's go.
Way
Hey,
before,
that's a lot
that
of
is a
money.
lot of cash, man. I remember hearing that going, ain't no way that dude's doing $14,000 for a fresh
Yeah.
water. I said, this pastor's lying to me in this sanctuary.
Did you think that?
I mean, not literally, but
You
it was,
did.
to me, it was
Hard
like,
to believe.
how, because that money to me, dude, that's what I made in a year and a half. That was huge money to me. I couldn't
Yeah.
even fathom that.
Mhm.
And now to look at it, now it literally is just a math game, you know, with where the numbers are. But the point of what I'm trying to say is gained a relationship with Josh, worked on and off when I really needed it. I was touring. I'd come back into town. It was rough. It was rough on my family, but I loved doing what I was doing. I think it taught me a lot. The point is, through relationship with him, I grew a relationship with Josiah. And at this point, it has turned into a relationship that was fostered 3 to 4 years before I even came on here full time, has now blossomed into a literal business partnership. If you want to look at it that literally, that is currency. But the amount of value that I would say both of these guys has put into me as a man, a husband, and a father is you have twofold currency. My bills are paid. We have a bright future that we love all together. And then I am investing in, I'm now able to be a benefactor to other people too. I mean, I could talk forever about this. The rooms that you get in at that level too, the relational currency, it's through the roof. It's through the roof. You can't really put a cap on it.
Yeah.
And so each relationship you gain can put you in another room. I mean, I could talk literally for hours on this.
Yeah. Yeah. Josiah, can you think of, would you agree that relationships are the currency of life?
Yeah.
What would be your example? Don't use me, use something different.
Yeah, you got
So Brady, no, no, I would say
I mean,
that.
look at this.
Yeah, I know. I was
Yeah,
about
dude,
to say
same
Scott,
point.
the guy behind the camera. This would be live streamed on an iPhone if it was just us. And so,
Yeah, right, bro. We would have stopped doing this
Yeah.
weeks ago.
yeah, we would have just talked about it for 17 years and never done it. But yeah, the relationships that you can tap into can really change a lot of stuff. And I think about the word currency, like it's a current, it's moving.
Mm.
It's not just you say hi to Scott and then you leave the room, but you also always have to be moving into these relationships to keep building and to tap into that relationship currency. It's a special thing.
All right.
Let me interject one more time. I swear I could literally, I'm sorry. I do this. I consume
Hey, and don't leave.
everything that's going
Don't
on.
leave.
But
Hang out.
listen,
Drop a
people
nugget.
always say it's all about who you know. What they're trying to say is that there is currency inside of relationship. There's relative truth to that. I think that's a negative way to put it, is like, if you want to succeed, it's about who you know, but I'm not going to lie to you. There's some relative truth to that. And so relational currency puts a better spin. It puts more emphasis on you having to do something to get that and making it attainable to know the people that you need to know to succeed.
So here's the first, if relationships are the currency of life, and we believe at Brown's that this is massively important, maybe the first dashboard that you want to measure is your relationships. And so I know that we think about data as far as like numbers and time and things to measure like that, but you may want to think of a different dashboard that says, how healthy are my relationships? How many relationships? I met with some pressure washing pastors this morning, and one of them is sharing about, hey, I have no jobs coming in. And immediately what I want to think about is, what relationships are you in? If you want more work, you have to have more relationships. And so, yes, we can invest in Google and Facebook and Bing and different, ads. You can go door to door, but you know what trumps all of it? Go get to know some folks. Go meet some business networking groups. You are only as rich as the relationships around you. And then if you have a team, the question becomes, when you're around your team, what do your relationships look like? is when you're calling them something to pull from them, or is it something to place inside of them? And so this gets into the deposit and withdrawal conversation. And if you're trying to scale a business and you're trying to grow and trying to understand how to scale, you need to measure who you are, where you are, and what other people are experiencing. And that's called your culture. And the way to get healthy culture is to put yourself around healthy environments. And so that means it all starts by determining who are you, where are you, what are you putting in your mind? Are you growing in your leadership? Have you joined a mastermind or a group of other individuals that are like-minded where you want to go? Because who you spend your time with will determine where you go. So here's your dashboard. Am I currently investing? I had Wesley ask this question about one of his team members. He loves his tech, Michael. And he says, hey, I'm looking at Michael for the winter. And I know that we're not going to have as much money coming in then as we do now. And I've got some money saved. I'm thinking about, hey, what should I do to be able to help Michael? And one idea is this: invest in his leadership.
100%.
If you want to see your team grow, if you want to see you grow, invest in the 10x of scaling their leadership, scaling their relationships. If you scale those things on a dashboard, whether it's written down of who are the who's that they spend time with, who are the who's that I spend time with, including social media, those who's will determine where you go and what happens next, because they're going to hold you accountable. And man, I've got one other thing. I'll save it for the very end. But at the very end of the show, I'm going to share. I'm going to use a cuss word.
Let's go.
Wait,
I love hearing that you are going to use a cuss word.
Do I need to bleep?
I want to give you guys an applicable tool really quick, since we're still relatively on the topic. It's just like the CRM conversation. Let me say this. It's an investment, not a cost, when you pay to be in a room with people like, let's say, property managers, other business owners, whatever the thing is. I have been working, and you were working the room before me. It's called CAI, Community Apartments Institute, something like that. You were working the room before I was, right? I don't know how
I wouldn't use the word working the room. I was in the room.
Yeah, which is what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
The point of what I'm trying to say is, if you wind up investing in a group like that, I think it cost us about $1,400 a year. I'm going to share
$595 just for that one group.
Are you sure?
Positive. We just paid
$600.
Yeah.
$600 to be in this room. I would have to pull the real numbers on this.
No brainer.
Okay. I have to pull the real numbers on this, but I'm sure it's made us over $500,000 of revenue. I bet it's actually over $1 million or more. When I say working that room, that is a good point of, here's the second applicable tool. So the first applicable tool is find a group like that. Just get in it. Just find a group and get in it. And just know that is a long-term play, because you don't go in the room like everybody else. Hey, my business call you, man, just call me when you got some pressure washing needs. No, man, you go in there. Listen to me. You go in the room and you get friends. When you leave, you talk to your friends. If I can tell you how many minutes/hours I've spent talking to these property managers on the phone, I've got one of them. Literally, I talked to him for 45 minutes the other day. He just called me to tell me about his heart problems. He didn't call me to talk about any apartment stuff. That's investment in a relationship that guarantees that they call you. And there is a really blurry line between, am I talking to him because I know that, or am I talking to him because I care about him? Yeah. Force yourself to get here, man. Just force yourself to love people. Just force yourself to do that. And that is the currency. It creates fiscal currency and physical currency. There's a difference. So don't go in the room and do what everybody else does. Separate yourself. Just change the way that you view that room into not working the room, but being in the room and gaining friends.
That's rich. Josiah, on this issue of data, I feel like maybe there's some more practical advice. I know I went more philosophical and relational, but when it comes to, like, we use House Call Pro for CRM. What all does House Call Pro or CRM do for someone that signs up? So you may not know what a CRM is. What all does it manage? What all does it help with? What all do we
don't? We're not like sponsored by them or anything.
No,
like that.
Yeah. At this point,
we talk a lot about House Call Pro. This is like the House Call Pro.
We should probably reach out to them, but I mean, I really think it's a huge tool as to why the business has grown.
Yeah.
So what all does it do?
It does a lot. It tracks it holds all of your customer base. So their name, number, address,
email address, boom, big one.
address.
And then if it holds their email address, does that give us an ability to send them emails?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a marketing funnel. All right. What else?
Marketing funnel.
Yeah.
It notifies the customer. So it's a nice plus to the customer to be constantly updated on
communication tools.
So it's communication. It tracks the time on site. It can be your clock in, clock out system. I mean, it's your business, all of the software, and it's got a bunch of apps that you can integrate into it. And so it really is a great tool. It
holds cards on file. So if you're having trouble with people paying, that's a toughie, and that's a rough one that a lot of business owners I think go through. Is like, should we be doing that? Should we not? We have elected to do it. It holds cards on file. It has sales proposal tools, which is different than a normal estimate. So if you want to put inside a small, medium, and large package, it has that application. It holds every single estimate you've ever given. It holds every single estimate you've ever won and every single estimate that you've ever lost. So it shows you how many open, won, lost, holds every single job you've ever done, total revenue, year-to-date revenue. You can narrow everything. I mean, it's just a no-brainer, dude.
Yeah, and if they were here speaking on it, but long story short, whether it's House Call Pro or whatever CRM, it also helps manage your time where you're able to, come in on the day and look at, or the day before and be like, hey, what all jobs do I have on the schedule tomorrow? And you're able to see your entire team's schedule or your schedule, which helps when you have a busy life and a work-life balance. So
before we got it, I would get a Facebook message. Josh would Facebook message me all the stops that I had on that day on Messenger. And it was like 2.
Oh, one of them. Stop at my house, get the truck, and go wash this house.
Yeah.
That's super good.
And CRM does a ton. QuickBooks helps you manage like what comes in, what goes out, and then you're able to also file your taxes. Is there any other data-driven behaviors? What about understanding performance? Don't we have a way of looking at all of our services and then be able to break down the profitability of each service? Is that a data-driven behavior?
Candidly, it 100% is, and it is inside of House Call Pro. We do not actually have that dialed in. It's a semi-recent feature. So in the last 3 months or so, maybe actually a little bit longer. The point is we don't have it dialed in yet, but it's in there. You can figure out your costs on every job. You can figure it out and dial everything in so you can know how profitable you are on every single job.
Yeah. And so what's helpful inside that making data-driven decision is you might end up wanting to get rid of the job that's making you 5% profitability and then try to add as many of the 20 or 30. And so this gets into being who you are and not who someone else is. And then Brady, you told me last week that we're not going to mention their names, but there's some companies that are only trying to win 20% or less of the estimates. Why would a company not want to win 70%?
It's the difference between a 10 to 20% profitability rate and 50 to 60% profitability rate. They're okay with pricing things very high, marketing themselves as a luxury, almost a luxury home service, rather than dominating the entire market. They want to dominate a small part of the market for a very large price, boosting profitability to be something that's almost unheard of.
Yeah. So there's wisdom. And so that gets back in the idea of know your why of what you do and stick with your why, not somebody else's why.
Exactly. Yeah. Identify your avatar, identify your customer, and then funnel your why through that.
That's good.
Man, really enjoyed this today. I think you've probably got something to close with, but I will share with you guys, we'll be back next week. We all do this every Monday morning, Central Standard Time from 9 to roughly 10, somewhere in between. If we're done, we'll stop early. If we're still rocking and rolling, we'll still be rocking and rolling.
We'll keep going.
If you'd like to be a guest on the show, we'll drop an email address in the chat. You can also find it in our YouTube channel. If you've watched any of the other YouTube lives, you can find it there. But Josh is stopping me mid-flow. Go.
I'm so excited. Brady, when's the last time you were, we like watching movies. Like there's some people that don't.
Yeah.
I love watching movies.
But I enjoy, I don't want to give up everything. Okay. Sure. So there's a little bit that I enjoy. Well, there's a cartoon character that you remind me of.
Don't say it.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
You better not tell anybody. And what's the name of that movie? Do y'all know the name of it?
I actually can. I'm blanking on it.
Inside Out.
Inside Out.
There you
That's
go.
right. And it's that red little character. His emotion is anger.
I mean, his emotion is anger, but I think that you should say that for me, it's passion.
Mm.
I think that's better. I'm not always angry. I'm just passionate. KPIs.
When is the last? All right. So Brady, when is the last time that you were like this SUCKs? I want you to think just for a second, Josiah, you get to answer the same question. When is the last time you were doing something or inside a situation and before you solved it, you identified it and you were like this SUCKs? When's the last time emotionally, and do you know the situation?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, but
That's
I'll
what I
say
was thinking.
I mean, that is a terrible representation of what I just tried to sell everybody on.
There you go.
No, that's so good. I mean, it could go from crawling under crawl spaces in houses, running electrical wire or whatever. But I would say this, the last thing that made me, it was not even anger. It was like almost sadness, was our daughter. We just didn't know what we were doing. It's our first child. She didn't sleep. I sat up in the bed. She's 15 months old. We haven't slept for 15 months. And I just said, I cannot do this anymore. This freaking sucks. I can't do it anymore. I mean, I was like a grown man. I don't care what you think. I was crying. I was like, dude, I've not slept in a year and a half, basically. So yeah, I would say that was probably 6 months ago or so, roughly.
And so we're going to have Josiah answer the same question. But if you're here, or whether it's like live or you're watching this, would you put inside the chat something that currently sucks inside of your life? I want you to just say, this is currently the thing that sucks. And it might be a person, it might be a place, it might be a situation, but I'd love for you to identify the thing that SUCKs. And I'm going to share with you why here in a second. But can you remember the last time that you were like, and Josiah is one of those people that's not the red emoji or the red inside out.
I am insulted by this.
They call me a flick off of Bug's Life. That's what they say I look like. So.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, happy go lucky, just easy going.
Yeah, he's got a backpack on, exploring.
Yeah. So, anyways, I would say for me, it kind of takes a couple different things kind of going south. I would say most recently, my wife and I were moving. We are, stressed about, finances. We're stressed about like there's things going on at work that I'm trying to tie up. And so usually for me, it's when a combination of things kind of get on me and I'm like, I can't get any traction in any of these areas.
And so it was a culmination. It wasn't just one. It takes multiple in order for you to go to a place that this SUCKs. And so I want you to think for a second about the last time you were in your head and you said this SUCKs. I want you to know there's a version of that doesn't. And sometimes we get upset at people. We get upset at, this can be your spouse, where you're like, my spouse sucks. My children suck. My family, my in-laws, my business, my fitness, you name it. Every time that you name it, you can also finish it with, but there's a version of it that doesn't. And so whatever sucks, I want to encourage you that there's a version of it that doesn't. You just have to get past the behavior that is equaling this suck meter and turn it into something that says, but there's a version that doesn't. And so like, even if you look at yourself and be like, hey, there's times in my life that I don't respond the way that I want. And so maybe you're hard on yourself and you say, SUCK, you need to understand this. There's a version of you that doesn't. And so inside of life, this can be super real as it relates to our emotions and our feelings and our frustrations. There's a version of business that doesn't. There is a version of your fitness that doesn't. There's a version of your faith that doesn't. There's a version of your children that doesn't. In order to make it not, you have to get back to the things that makes it not. And so I know that sounds dumb, but it's really intuitive to say this question: what must I do to get back to the basics of making this thing healthy? Because whatever is unhealthy in our lives, I want to encourage you, there's a way to make that thing healthy. And it's, you got to feed it the right food. And if you're feeding the wrong food to the wrong food to the right individual, you're going to get a version of them, or you're going to get a version of the situation, or your version of yourself that is not the version that you would have planned out if you were able to write the story.
That's good.
And so it's really important for you to know, why do you do what you do as a human being from the very beginning and from the very basics. The very first bucket we need to be asking ourselves is, what do I want out of this life? When the whole thing is over, when all has been said and done, what really matters in life? Life sucks when that thing is no longer being fed. You have to get back to the thing that matters the most, and that is your core of why when you're no longer here, and then feed that. Because I can share with you that my why to finish this life is to finish this life as a godly man, husband, and father. If I'm feeding other things in life and not that thing is getting what? Starved. It's not being fed, which means my core frustration in life might be a result of not feeding the thing that matters most in my life, because I've decided to make these other things preeminent over those things. And like from a biblical position, it's like, what if I gain the whole world but lose my soul? What does it profit a man? Or there were two men that built two different houses, one of them on a firm foundation and another one on shifting sands. The winds blew, the rain came, the storms hit against the house. One of them stood, the other one fell, and it said the whole household fell. None of us would start this life and say, hey, I want to ruin my marriage. I want to ruin my relationship with my children. But we do it as a result of stop being intentional on the things that matter most in our lives. And so let me encourage you, get back to the basics. We're a pressure washing company. We're talking about business and data. The first data decision that we need to make is determine what's going to be the thing we're living for. What is our master? What are we serving? What are we bowing down to? And when life sucks, it's ultimately because we've been bowing down to the wrong master.
Right.
And because life is fulfilling and it's fruitful when we're feeding ourselves on things that matter in life and stop feeding the things that don't matter in life.
That's good.
Yeah. So that's kind of the nugget that I would encourage our listeners and ourselves to say, stop feeding the things that are actually fake and fulfilling our future, and start feeding the thing that actually gives us the most life in this life.
So good. It's good.
Yeah. That's all that I wanted to say. What do you guys have?
That's it for me.
I mean, I feel like that's a perfect ending. Make sure to hit subscribe. If you know a friend that would enjoy content like this, let him know, let her know. And we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.